Of the Hive. Chapter 5. The Summit. A quill gripped in orange telekinesis hovered above a blank piece of paper. Its delicate tip trembled above the parchment as though the quill itself were channeling Twilight Sparkle's excitement. Reading while hanging from the ceiling was one thing, but writing was an entirely different kind of difficulty.
Dear Princess Celestia, you would not believe where I am right now. Cadista's taking me to the Summit of the Queens aboard a huge airship. The summit is an important event and in the interest of keeping open relations between our nations. Cadista has suggested I tell you all about it. I won't be writing about it though because I'd rather tell you in person. Tomorrow when the summit's over, I'll be joining the next trade caravan in Equestria to see you, my first family, and my friends in Ponyville. Every day something helps me recover more of my old memories, and I can only hope that I can get them all back in time. But I've prepared myself for the possibility that it might not happen. Then again, the future is just as important as the past. Even if I don't get all of my memories back, I forge new ones every day, along with new friendships. As for Stripped Gear's technology, it's absolutely amazing. A brother of mine, Wretched Altair, told me that this ship I'm on is just over 100 meters in length and is made of mostly steel. I'm not exactly sure why he was so proud of its steel construction, but the only other airships I've seen outside of Stripped Gear are two in Equestria, plus my old hot air balloon, so maybe wood construction is the norm outside of our hive. Regardless, it's time for my changeling life report. There are a lot of differences between what I remember and how life is now. To be perfectly honest, I think I was very fortunate that I lost my memory before hatching. I'm not saying that because I want to forget about my past, but because my amnesia sort of helped me rebuild myself. Looking back on my old memories, how physically different I was, and the whole business with a hive mind, I just don't think I could have handled my transformation if my memories had still been intact. My amnesia gave me the chance to rebuild the foundation of who and what I am, and for that, at least I'm grateful. Aside from you, I remember shining armor in most of what happened in the wedding. If I were still a unicorn, I'd probably have every right to despise changelings. But now that I've been one for almost a week, I can say that chrysalis doesn't define our species. I hope my visit can address any misunderstandings between our people. I shouldn't let musings drag me down. Thinking about my life as a changeling, if I had to choose one thing that stood out above everything else, it'd have to be the hive mind. I remember not being a part of one, so I can imagine how unsettling it might be if you take anything out of context, but hear me out on this. Being one with the hive mind is like being in a restaurant where everyone is having a conversation. Now expand that to encompass 4,000 diners where every one of them is audible to you. What's fascinating is that if I don't wish to think about the link, as we call it, then it fades into the background. It never distracts me from the task at hoof, and I find that it's actually very soothing to just lay back and immerse myself in listening to the hive mind. Now, I know you'll probably think it's maddening to listen to 4,000 voices in your head every waking moment, and it might be to a non-changeling mind. Perhaps that's not the case to us because we're simply built to work this way. Plus, because I'm a real changeling, I can be forcibly commanded by the link to do anything, so you don't have to worry about me being coerced through it. I'd really like to go into more details, but I just turned this letter into an essay. Like I said, it's complicated, and I'd just rather tell you face to face when I arrive. It looks like we're nearly at our destination, so I'd better wrap this up. I'll see you soon. Sincerely, Twilight Sparkle.
Twilight rolled up the scroll with her magic and detached herself from the ceiling, flying down to a desk where Spike's candle rested. She lit the dragonfire candle and burned the letter. A sigh escaped her lips as she watched the green flames eat through the parchment. It was a 3-hour flight from Stripped Gear to the summit, and she was enjoying the accommodations the Queen Quarters provided.
I'm kind of surprised a military ship would have such a spacious room. But I suppose it lends credence to the idiom written above the door. It's good to be the Queen. Cadista said that it was Yumiya who put that plaque there, but
Twilight smirked.
She never took it down. Well, if for nothing else, you might as well try to enjoy your lot in life.
Twilight got up and moved towards a porthole to gaze at the view. Despite the Queen's chambers being spacious, it didn't have a very large window, something Twilight respected.
If it's going to be a warship, then having a large window for a target isn't very sound. Twilight,
Cadista called.
We're nearly there. Why don't you join me on the bridge?
Twilight cleaned up her writing utensils.
Of course! I'll be right there.
A few minutes later, Twilight arrived on the bridge. She glanced at a plaque depicting the name of the ship, SGN Deception. Cadista was looking out of the front of the bridge, which had the largest window on the ship. Twilight cantered over to her side and gazed down at the landscape below. While Stripped Gear rested in an extinct caldera, the vast stretches of land below used to be farmlands that had been reclaimed by the jungles centuries ago. Twilight could see sporadic ruins and old monuments proclaiming that civilization used to exist there. Sitting above it were the ruins of a city on a plateau, with a castle cut from an ebony spire. Over the ages, only the castle had been maintained, and that was the Deception's destination. Twilight's good mood fell as she laid eyes on the castle.
Well, this is it. Whether I want to or not, every pony's gonna see me as your heir after this. You'll do fine, Twilight,
Cadista said while soothing her over the link.
If I recall correctly, half of your education under Celestia was in politicking. I'm sure it'll start coming back to you.
Twilight stopped fidgeting with her hooves.
I hope so,
She replied, lapsing into vocalizing her thoughts. Cadista pulled the younger mare into a side hug, while addressing the crew behind her.
Captain Silver, we're close enough. Drop the cloak and let them know that we're here.
Aye, my queen.
Twilight gently nuzzled Cadista, so she wouldn't damage her main style while watching the ship. The bridge sat on the upper hull in the center, so she was able to see several orange crystals on steel booms. The crystals stood perpendicular to the hull and were constantly pulsing with maddeningly complex magical arrays to form a cloaking sphere around the Deception. With the order given, the crystals stopped pulsing, and the booms retracted. The ship's cloaking field dropped, revealing itself to the castle. Twilight scanned the skies around the plateau. The only things that she could see were the distant figures of other changelings and white clouds.
Where are the other Queen's airships? I'd be surprised if there were any. We're the only Hive with the capability and motivation to build one.
Twilight's brow furrowed.
Then how do they get here? Surely they don't fly on their own. Not the Queens, no. Look there.
Twilight moved her head away from Cadista's fur to see an enormous brown behemoth emerge from the dense cloud layer towards the south. At such a distance, all she could make out was the glint of what seemed like dragon scale, a swarm of brown figures around it, and its bloated body being propelled by no visible forces.
That's Queen Croesus's personal transport. It's bigger than the last time I saw it.
Twilight pressed her snout against the glass, before seeing a telescope nearby and switching to it.
What in the world is it?
Cadista cast a good-humored smirk.
That is Croesus's crowning achievement. Fluffy.
Twilight couldn't help but to stare at her matriarch.
Fluffy? Is she serious? It's covered in scales. I really wish she would get used to speaking solely within the hive mind, if only to safeguard her secrets. Fluffy is a specially crafted drone. It has been grown over the past 50 years, and has even been completely weaned off the need for love at the expense of its mind being reduced to nothing more than basic instinct. It can carry over 50,000 drones within its shell. So it's like a living airship?
Cadista barely suppressed a sigh. Twilight was still vocalizing everything.
To put it simply, yes.
Twilight scanned the skies as the Deception closed in on the castle and berthed with one of the northern docks. The two royals were escorted out onto the ebony stone by 4 drones, black changelings with jet-black eyes. The tallest dipped his head in respect to them.
Queen Cadista, welcome to the summit.
He faced Twilight, who stood silently in a stoic pose.
Who is this? This is my heir, Twilight Sparkle.
The lead changeling eyed the purple mare for a few moments before nodding to her.
Very well. Half of the queens have already assembled. This way, if you please.
He turned about face and started walking away. Twilight followed a step behind Cadista.
Who do they belong to?
Cadista was glad that she had the wits to stay in hive speak while in the company of others.
They are the Home Guard. They do not belong to a queen and consist solely of drones who are donated to the castle while still in the shell. This castle marks the first known hive to exist and is considered neutral ground. Any attack upon another while a summit is in session or 3 days before or after is tantamount to declaring war on every pony.
Eventually the pair arrived at a massive throne room, open to the sky above. It was designed like a circular amphitheater, with a small ebony spire towards the northern side, with an empty black throne carved into it. Twilight only saw a scant few drones among the 16 royals, 4 of whom were princesses. The Home Guard captain yelled in announcements.
Assembled queens, I present Queen Cadista and her heir, Princess Twilight Sparkle.
All eyes shifted first to Cadista, whom they expected, and then to Twilight, which drew far more attention than the purple changeling ever wished to have. Cadista soothed her over the link.
Be alert, but also at ease. It will garner a measure of respect if you appear comfortable in your position.
Before Twilight could do so, a moss green queen jumped up from her seat.
What's this, Cadista? A former equestrian? Is there just one more step towards ponifying your hive?
Cadista narrowed her eyes.
Yolindris, what I do with my hive is none of your concern.
She sat down with Twilight to her right.
You should spend less time drowning yourself in nectar and more time in improving your alchemy.
She glanced at Yolindris' escorts.
Their chitin is looking rather fragile.
A much older queen hovering over the abandoned throne spoke out before Yolindris could retort.
Enough, both of you.
She said in a grating voice, eroded by the passage of time.
You can bicker amongst yourselves after the summit.
Cadista nodded in respect to her elder, while Yolindris scoffed. Twilight was enraptured by the exchange.
I should get to know who I'll be dealing with in the future. Who is Yolindris and that other queen? The green one is Yolindris, an atrocious waste of space, capable of only breeding brittle, mindless drones. She leaves all of the thinking to Chrysalis, her older sister.
Twilight remembered Chrysalis after her memories of the wedding returned in full. She scowled, while casting her gaze to the Black Queen with acid green eyes. Chrysalis was studying Twilight in turn, but held her tongue. While Twilight glared at her, Chrysalis was finding it extremely difficult to hide her shock at the purple mare's very existence, and her appearance only complicated the effort. Cadista directed Twilight's attention towards the elder queen with magenta eyes and a violet mane.
She is Yolindris, the oldest queen alive by far, and has the most powerful hive of nearly 150,000 drones. She also holds great respect amongst those of us who know better.
she says while glancing at Elindris. Twilight balked.
How can she lay so many eggs? I'm not sure. I suspect that she has the original version of Chrysalis's breeding drones, or she found a way to give her drones incredible longevity. It could be neither of those things for all I know, but Elindris has been the rock of our nation for the past millennium. She's responsible for both keeping explorers from venturing into our territory and information control. She's the reason that we were only myths to equestrians up until now.
Kadista informed Twilight of every queen in attendance, including those that trickled in as the meeting time drew nearer. It took nearly half an hour, and by then, Twilight was getting rather hungry.
Are we going to be served lunch anytime soon?
I got a gut feeling that this summit is gonna be a little rocky here and there, but in the end, it's probably gonna work out for everyone. Or almost everyone. Anywho, let's get on to our noble donators. Top donators are 630, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, and only one thing. Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin Roland, CrazyKiller557, Stu Hex, Will, Omicron Lyre, Chris, Twinkie, Dospo, Delta Omega, Jack Hadge, Runescyther9852, Madman Stan, Leslie Perkett, Drake Lovedragon, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, Lenga12, Sorcerer Constantine, Hadzaza, Conver, and many more spectacular people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.